What's up, everybody? This is What is Sports? I'm your host, Tyler Dietz. With me is Nicholas Grant.
Hey, man. I'm happy to be here. I am feeling good, had a nice dinner, and I'm ready to talk about some sports.
That's awesome. Glad to have you. We also got JP Cochran, feeling a little bit under the weather tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm not feeling that good as good as Nick, but I'm feeling well enough to talk about some sports.
That's right. Well, hey, maybe it'll make you feel better because
Yeah, maybe so.
All right, so today we're talking about the Eagles versus Falcons game. We're doing a quick recap of that, and we're going to be diving into the Monster Energy Cup NASCAR Playoffs, which should be interesting. I watched a NASCAR race this weekend, so I can tell you all about it. And we're going to be getting to news and all that stuff as well. Now, if you enjoy what you hear this episode, give us a like on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at WhatIsSports1 with no question mark. And if you haven't yet, please give us a subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or Google Play. And, of course, leave us a rating and review if you enjoy the show. Of course, also check out our sister show, What is Nerd? We're talking about scary stuff. This week, we're talking about the writer H.P. Lovecraft. We're doing a couple of short stories of his. Finally, if you have any questions or comments, send us an email at wisportscast@gmail.com. All right, so before we do anything, Nick, what's going on with Antonio Brown now?
Yeah, so last week we talked about him because that's when everything happened, and I just want to give a few updates and corrections to what we said last week. So if you recall, which I'm sure you do, one of the things I talked about was he felt disrespected financially and he wanted more money. I don't know where I got that because he's one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. So he basically he wanted out of Pittsburgh because the relationship with the Pittsburgh Steelers really wasn't working anymore, to put it plainly. He was one of the highest or one of the highest players, wide receivers in the league. And also, when he was traded, he had 3 years left on his contract, traded to the Raiders. And, we talked about a little bit about how he was accused of sexual assault and rape by his former trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And, people were saying, well, now that he's with the Patriots, is he going to play? What's going to happen?
Right.
Well, it turns out he was not placed on the commissioner's exempt list. So he played week 2, which was this past Sunday, and he had 4 catches for 56 yards and 1 touchdown. So right now he's still playing until, I guess, further evidence comes out or if the commissioner changes his mind. But so you don't know what's going to happen with him. He might play the rest of the season, or he might play a few more games, and then they say, you know what, there's enough evidence, we don't want you to play anymore.
Well, and I don't know much about legal issues with sports players and all that stuff, but let's say that there are accusations. Would they usually suspend a player until further notice or something like that? How does it usually play out?
Yeah, I mean that's happened where somebody's placed on the exempt list.
Did that happen to Zeke or?
No, I don't think it happened to Zeke. I think he was suspended a few games because of his off the field stuff he did some crazy things, and which I can't remember. I think did he punch somebody? I know he groped somebody, or it was some.
Well, the big thing, it was just accusations of sexual misconduct. It didn't have to do. And over the summer, he also ended up getting in a fight with a security guard, but it wasn't really about that.
All right, Nick. Well, you stay on that story, stay on that beat, and let us know if anything else happens with.
Yeah, it was just crazy, just one thing after another. But anyway.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the WNBA Playoffs, which started this past week.
I actually watched the end of one of the games this weekend.
Which one did you watch?
The end of the Seattle Storm and Los Angeles Sparks.
Oh, okay. So you watched the boring one.
Yes.
There's been 4 playoff games so far. Wednesday, last week on the 11th, we had round 1, the Chicago Sky and the Phoenix Mercury. Chicago Sky won 105-76. Then the Seattle Storm beat the Minnesota Lynx 84-74. And so, according to the seeds, this is kind of what was predicted. Now, so you watched the LA Sparks and the Seattle Storm, which was Sunday the 15th. Sparks beat the Storm 92-69. Now the game
So do they already advance? Is it a single elimination?
So yes, exactly, a single elimination. And I kind of covered this last time, but So the LA Sparks and the Las Vegas Aces, they pretty much got to go straight to round 2 because of their seed. The good game, though, was the Las Vegas Aces against the Chicago Sky. The Aces won 93-92. And this was a great game because the Aces are the 4th seeded team. The Chicago Sky is the 5th seeded team. So it was going to be a close game. But the Chicago Sky were ahead for most of the game, and it looked like they were going to win. I mean, they didn't have a huge lead. It was very neck and neck. They were within 10 points pretty much the whole game. But the ending was crazy. Like, look up the highlights for this because Chicago had possession of the ball, and we were in, like, talking the last 10 seconds of the game. Chicago was ahead 92-90. But the Las Vegas defense was, like, keeping the pressure on the ball holder to the point where she had to make, like, a desperate pass to get rid of it. And Las Vegas intercepted the ball and scored a 3-pointer in the last 4 seconds of the game. I mean, that set them up for winning. It's a huge disappointment for Chicago, but a really suspenseful and entertaining game. And on Tuesday the 17th this week, we had the Suns beat the Sparks 84-75, and the Mystics beat the Aces 97-95. Another close game. Now this is the semifinals, so this is game 1 out of a best-of-5 series for each team. So upcoming games, we have the semifinals, which are continuing on Thursday the 19th, Sunday the 22nd, then Tuesday the 24th. Now, as I said, the semifinals are best of 5, okay? And so this is really when they're worth watching. So we'll have the Connecticut Suns and the LA Sparks playing each other, best of 5, as well as the Washington Mystics and Las Vegas Aces. Both games will be on the same night each night. So Thursday, Sunday, and Tuesday is when y'all should be watching. All right?
All right. Yeah, I actually might check it out because was it Chicago and Las Vegas?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty exciting. Kind of wish I watched it, but I mean, basketball is fun to watch. Good basketball is fun to watch, and we've talked about that during March Madness, and then obviously the NBA playoffs. So I'm looking forward to giving this a shot and checking it out.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that like the last quarter of a close basketball game is really what's worth watching.
For sure.
Whenever it starts getting to the end and it's a close game, and that's just, I mean, there's nothing better than that.
There's
great.
2 minutes on the game clock, and it takes 30 minutes in real time.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
So, okay, now we got a little bit of more basketball news, right, JP? You're talking about the FIBA, right?
Yes. So the FIBA just wrapped up. So
that's the International Basketball Association, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's like the FIBA is the Basketball World Cup, basically. So this tournament was hosted in China. It was rescheduled from 2018 to 2019, actually, because they didn't want it to coincide with the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup. So,
interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I just learned about that, and also the tournament serves as a qualification for the 2020 Summer Olympics. I
didn't know that either.
Yeah, and this is all according to Wikipedia, because you know what, I really have. I didn't know when you told me FIBA. Like, I didn't really know what FIBA was. I heard that there was a basketball tournament going on. Yeah, so.
Well, we don't really get that. Like, we don't pay attention to that because we got the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's surprising because I didn't really hear much about it either. But then I saw this results, and the craziest thing is that I saw that the United States, despite being like the best country at basketball, didn't win. Right.
Right. So the United States, they lost to France, I believe, in the qualifying. Like they didn't make it to the quarterfinals. Basically,
We lost to the French.
Yes, they lost to the French.
No. How does that happen? Like we
anybody but the French.
So Spain won, and evidently Marc Gasol, who's a Spanish player, he's been in the NBA for a while. He's played with the Grizzlies and a few other teams.
The Raptors.
The Raptors. That's right.
Yeah.
The Raptors. Sorry. And also, evidently, he played for FC Barcelona. So I guess he's just a really good.
That's talented because basketball is all hands, right?
In theory, yes.
And like soccer's all feet. So that's crazy. If only there was a sport that used all four limbs, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then also, I mean, I guess because his brother Paul Gasol is also a NBA player. So anyway, Gasol, he totaled 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists to lead his team to winning the gold. And then, like I said, they played Argentina in the final. And then the U.S. didn't. They lost to France before even the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So. But
it's just amazing. It's amazing to me that the U.S. didn't win. But I guess
I think part of it was because a lot of the main players that typically do play for the Olympic team and the U.S. national team, they sat out, like some of the top players. So, granted, you still had some very talented NBA players making up the national team, but it wasn't like the first picks, you know.
Right. I mean, it's like It's like, you know, U.S. didn't really care about that much.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, they compete, they want to win, but still, it wasn't like the elite, all the elite guys. We had some really good guys on the team, but
right. And yeah, so the roster, we had Kemba Walker from the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown from the Celtics, Donovan Mitchell, Mason Plumlee, Marcus Smart, Harrison Barnes, Brook Lopez. So I mean, these just think like we have, you know, Steph and Klay Thompson, and we have LeBron, and I mean, none of those stars were played. So I feel like if they wanted to win it, they could, but I guess you know, I don't know if I would want to play in a big tournament like that after the playoffs. I mean, I'd want it because I mean, all the great players were in the playoffs. I mean, I know LeBron wasn't, but
and NBA starts in like a month, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably, you know, training and all that stuff, you know.
And I mean, I'm sure they want to like take some trips and relax and just enjoy things.
Yeah, take some time off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a disappointing year for the U.S. I mean, it's the first time in a while since the U.S. has lost, but I mean, maybe I don't know. I guess for the Olympics they can have a different roster, so maybe it's just a wake up call, and the Olympics will be a different story.
Well, thanks, JP, for that. Nick, I think you have a little bit of news about college football, right?
Yeah, I just want to go over a few of the notable college football games that happened this weekend. We had number 18 Michigan State. They lost to unranked Arizona State 10-7. Then you had Maryland, who's ranked number 21. They lost to Temple 20-17. Now, I know Maryland typically isn't a ranked team anyways, but it was mainly surprising since Maryland scored 79 and then 63 points in the first two games.
Wow.
So they were held to 17, which, you know, that's a big difference.
Temple is not ranked, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Temple isn't really known as a football school, so that's kind of why it's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had BYU defeated the 24-ranked USC Trojans 30-27 in overtime. And I believe it was last week, everybody was saying, man, USC, they might be back. They're a top program that has kind of fallen on a little bit of hard times and some just kind of lost their winning ways, but they were people thought they were coming back, and then they get beat by BYU. So
it was uneventful Saturday college football. I was disappointed. There weren't really many games.
All right. Well, we got some more football talk because we watched the Eagles versus Falcons game.
Yeah, man, Sunday Night Football on NBC. It was exciting.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was all right. It could have been better.
Well, okay, so I got a question for you, okay? Because obviously, this was what was the score? I don't have the score.
It was 24. Atlanta won 24-20.
Okay, so I thought it was lower scoring than that. I felt like no one was. I felt like it was a very defensive game. Was it not?
No, it most definitely was.
Yeah.
Which I thought was surprising. JP can back me up on this, but the last few years, Atlanta's been they still are a pretty high-powered offense, and their defense has been their weak spot. Where they had to be a high-powered offense because their defense couldn't stop anything. And Philadelphia, they have a pretty good offense. Carson Wentz is their quarterback, and he looked completely terrible. He looked like trash in the first quarter and the first half.
Yeah,
and so I was expecting a pretty high-scoring game, And it was, like you said, Dietz, pretty defensive all the way through.
I mean, it felt like there were so many missed opportunities for good plays.
Yeah, and he's just been getting off, or Carson Wentz. Well, he's been getting off to a slow start because last week they played the Redskins and they were getting whooped by the Redskins, and then they came back, and I mean that only almost happened in this game. I think Falcons were up 17-6 at one point, and then the Eagles started to come back, and actually at one point it was 20-17. So for a moment you thought that it was just going to be another one of those games, like where they started off slow and then ended up just turning into high gear late in the game.
Right, and I think one of the main storylines was the injuries that the Eagles had on offense. Early in the game, they lost one of their top receivers, Alshon Jeffrey, who I guess they said that he had a calf issue, so they sat him out for the game. And then Deshaun Jackson, who put on a show in Week 1, I think. Yeah, Week 1, he put on a show. And, he's an electrifying receiver, and he was out. So you had your third top receiver was basically your second receiving option behind Zach Ertz. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed because I had Carson Wentz in our listener fantasy football league, and he was complete trash in the first half.
Is that why you lost?
Yeah, well, that's not why I lost, but that's one of the reasons why. But there was a lot of turnovers, and just really wasn't a very high scoring game. But we were kind of talking about a little bit. The end got very exciting. Late in the game, JP said they were coming back, the Eagles. Carson Wentz made several amazing throws when the pocket collapsed, and I thought it was fun to watch, even though they didn't win the game. I thought at the end it was worthwhile watching, and he made some really cool plays.
So I got one question. Okay, so first of all, a touchback, right, is whenever the defensive team pushes the offensive team back into the end zone, right? Is that a touchback?
Well, that's like a touchback is like when there's a kickoff. So whenever a team scores,
that's okay.
And they
what am I thinking of then? What's the thing whenever the
safety?
The offense?
Yeah, that'd be safety. They get 2 points for doing that.
Oh, okay.
And then they get the ball. So not only do you give the opposing team 2 points, but then they receive the ball because you got tackled in your own end zone. So
right.
Safety is pretty bad. You don't want that to happen.
Well, so in a situation, because this happened where a player intercepted the ball and was in the end zone, but then got tackled, right? Mm-hmm. While he was in the end zone. What happens then exactly? What's the rule with that?
That was a touchback. So
okay.
So he was tackled, and then I believe they take it out to the 20-yard line.
Uh-huh.
And then, but yeah, that's a touchback. And JP was talking about this too. Whenever you do a kickoff, and if the return team catches the ball in the end zone, they can take a knee, and it's a touchback. So
I was getting touchback and safety confused. Okay, I got it. That makes sense. But that kind of just brought something up that I guess a rule that I wasn't really familiar with. So, all right, awesome. Well, okay, so what's the game for next week that we're watching for the recap? Are we going to watch Notre Dame and Georgia?
Yes. I was looking at some of the big college games coming up. Number ranked 7 Notre Dame will be at number 3 Georgia. I think that'll be probably the most entertaining game. But some other games that will probably be exciting. You have number 11 Michigan at number 13 Wisconsin, and then number 8 Auburn at number 17 Texas A&M. And those all seem pretty interesting, so I'll probably watch those games. But I think the main one we're going to watch will be Notre Dame at Georgia.
All right, awesome. Well, next up, we're going to be talking about our main thing for this evening, the Monster Energy Cup NASCAR Playoffs. Okay, now I say main thing. I mean, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but this is a brand new thing for us that I wanted to dive into. Okay, so first of all, we've talked a little bit about NASCAR in the past, but remind me, have y'all ever watched NASCAR before?
No, I still haven't watched NASCAR.
No, I've seen parts of it on TV, but I've never really sat down and watched a full race.
Yeah, well, after watching my first NASCAR race, I gotta say you're not missing much. No,
not as exciting as IndyCar or Formula
because
1.
Okay, so and I say that because I've never, this is my first NASCAR race, first time really kind of getting into it. It took me a while to get into IndyCar and F1 because it takes a while to get to know the racers and the storylines. Like I talk about it, almost every week whenever I do the F1 or IndyCar recaps. Is there's like a narrative that starts being made, right? You have like the underdog and the top dog, right? And so I don't really know about those dynamics in NASCAR yet. We're just now getting into it. It kind of makes me wish I had started watching before the playoffs began. But now that the stakes are higher, I think that it can help me stick with it better. But so, did y'all know this? That the NASCAR playoffs are actually elimination-style playoffs, like a tournament?
No, I didn't. I had no idea.
No, so how does that work?
Yeah, it's crazy. Because whenever I saw that, because I saw that the NASCAR playoffs are coming up, I was like, what does that mean? Because all the other racing series, or all the other ones, the IndyCar and F1, it's just a point system, right? So whoever has the most number of points at the end of the season is the winner. NASCAR is a bit different. They do have a elimination-style playoff series. So the first one, this is the round of 16, started this past Sunday. The race was the South Point 400 at Las Vegas. So there's 16 racers in the competition currently. There's going to be a total of 3 races in the round of 16. And so the 4 lowest scoring cars, or the lowest scoring drivers, get eliminated. You get a certain number of points for each race. You get 5 points for a win in a race. And then you get 1 point for every time they lead a stage. Do y'all know how stages work in NASCAR?
No, I don't.
I have no idea.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Now, each race is, say, the one that we just had, the South Point 400. That refers to 400 miles that they're racing, not 400 laps. I always used to think that it was the number of laps that they had to drive. So it's actually the number of miles. So stage 1...
Which is still a lot. I mean, 400, that's a freaking lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's why it's like 3 hours long. And but so the South Point 400, okay, it's 400 miles. That's a total of 267 laps around the track. So every race in NASCAR is divided into stages. Usually it's 3 stages. So stage 1 and 2 of the South Point 400 is 80 laps. And then stage 3 is 107 laps. So you get bonus points for leading the race during one of the stages. It's kind of like with the Tour de France, right? There's little races within the main race.
Yeah, you get the fancy shirt, the fancy jersey,
yeah,
depending on how well you do.
Right, they actually paint your car that color, and you get to drive it around in a yellow car all day. But no, not really. But actually, I feel like, okay, that's another thing I wanted to bring up, okay? Because NASCAR, it's a little bit off topic from what I was talking about, but NASCAR's ridiculous with the sponsorships, right? Like how the cars are completely covered in decals for like McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
Man,
like
that's just cool. That's just cool, man. It's just like graffiti. It's awesome.
No, it's horrible. And like, okay, so the craziest thing, okay, is so the fuel that they use, okay, and I didn't know this. This was brand new to me. But the fuel that they use is called Sunoco or Sunoco. It's a motor fuel, right? It's gasoline. But every time the cars gas up, okay, every time they stop in the pit stop and get gassed up, the pit crew comes out and they have this giant jug that says Sunoco, like on the jug, and it's crazy. It's like even the fuel tank is advertised, and every time the commentators are talking about that the cars are being refueled, they use the word Sunoco fuel every single time, like they're obligated to. Like every time they say, "Oh yeah, the cars are stopping to get their Sunoco fuel."
It's marketing, man. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's just funny because, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because obviously these races are expensive and they have to be financed by somebody. But yeah, just the level of just corporate sponsorship.
It's like in your face, just like overwhelming.
A little bit overkill.
It's almost like, imagine if football players. If their jerseys were like covered in like McDonald's logos or something like that.
Yeah. It sounds almost like comical.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
In a way.
Or like in MTV Cribs. Do y'all remember that? Whenever they would be showing their house and they'd open up their fridge and like all they have is Crystal Light or something like that in their fridge. Yeah. They're like, I love this stuff, Crystal Light. Anyways, where was I? I was talking about the South Point 400, which is the race that we just had. That was the first of the 3 round of 16 races. So as I said, once these 3 races are over, by the way, the next race is going to be next Saturday, the Federated Auto Parts 400 at Richmond. That's Saturday night. And after that, there will be the Bank of America Roval at Charlotte. That's going to be Sunday the 28th. Pretty much every race is on Sunday except for next week's race on Saturday the 21st. But once the round of 16 is over, it's going to go down to round of 12. Then there's going to be 3 races. Then they're going to have round of 8, 3 races. And then they're going to have the championship, which is the final 4. Now, how many cars do you think are in a regular NASCAR race usually?
30.
Yeah, I was going to say 32.
Yeah. So, close. 40 is the max. Usually there's about like 38.
Oh, okay. I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's one of the things that is cool about NASCAR is just how many freaking cars there are. like that's
and they're big too. I mean,
yeah.
You know, IndyCar and Formula One, I mean, they're nice sized cars, but you know, they're pretty. They seem pretty agile.
Yeah.
You know, like pretty skinny, and these are like just big. I don't know. What's a good way to describe them, JP? Just big old cars.
They're like sedans, right?
Big old sedans.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because they can actually. So if 2 Indy cars kind of graze each other's sides, then they have to make a pit stop and like get their front fender replaced or something like that. Whereas with these stock cars that the NASCAR drivers drive, they can like bump into each other and stuff. Like they can sideswipe each other and all that and keep going. And it's just crazy how crowded the track is, and it's whenever there is like a big crash, like the crashes are unbelievable, like insane, like just tons of cars crashing into each other. It's like unbelievably dangerous because there's so many of them. But so there's normally up to 40 cars in a race. Now with playoffs, I figured that it would be kind of boring to watch like the final race where there's only like 4 cars left, right? But whenever there is a playoff race, they still have a full roster of racers. It's just that for everyone else, it's like an exhibition race basically. So there's still about 38 cars on the track. It's just only a few of them are competing, and so I'm kind of glad at that because I was like, man, I'm gonna be watching a race with half the number of cars on the field, but it's the full roster.
Wow. There's like so many things I just had no idea.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the theme of the show, isn't it?
yeah, especially when it comes to racing sports.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah. So the Final Four championship is in Miami on November 17th. So between now and then, there's going to be a race every weekend. Always on Sunday, except for this coming weekend. It'll be on Saturday. Now, talking about standings, going into the playoffs, we have the top 5 racers right now: Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and Brad Keselowski. Now, they're currently the top 5. That's probably going to change as playoffs go on. Now, the winner of the race that just happened is Martin Truex Jr. He made first place. He's still first place in standings because he made first. Kevin Harvick got second. Brad Keselowski got third. Chase Elliott got fourth, and Ryan Blaney got fifth in this past race. So I'm still learning the racers, still learning the narratives and all that stuff. I haven't picked one that I like, because no one has a name as good as like Will Power or something like that. Tune into the next race, the Federated Auto Parts 400 at Richmond, Saturday, September 21st at 6:30 p.m. Central is when it is. Me personally, I'm going to probably watch part of these races, but I don't know. To me, they're just not as exciting as IndyCar or F1. But maybe I haven't given it enough of a chance to make that choice, you know?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, I've never really watched NASCAR, and I never really had a strong desire. I mean, I think I've spent more time watching Ricky Bobby than I have actual NASCAR.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, I'll check it out. I mean, playoffs are always fun because anything can happen, and there's always obviously more on the line. So I'll probably check out a few races and see what happens. I might dabble a little bit in NASCAR.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, now that I know what's going on, it'll be easier to watch. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll be coming in with an update weekly, kind of talking about if there's any changes in the lineups and all that stuff. So that pretty much does it for what I got. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, there's a lot I can talk about. I mean, why, the sky, I mean, how is that going? It's going great.
Hey, you know what we can talk about, and what we should talk about is how my fantasy football team, the Dietz Dominators, is undefeated. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good for you. You chose a good quarterback to have.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Still number one in the.
I'm 1-1. Happy I'm not 0-2, but I was hoping to win last week.
Yeah, it's great that you're not 0-2. That would suck if you were 0-2, JP.
Yeah, that's gonna be the worst.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what, Nick? Though maybe things will turn up. I believe in the dangerous dogs. I believe you guys will turn things around.
Yeah, I'm 0-2. I'm the last ranked team. My team has not been scoring a lot of points, but that's okay. It's like JP said, it's a long season, and I'm sticking with it, and hoping things turn around. But if not, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well,
it's still fun. And Dietz, I'm glad you're doing well, having fun with it. So you get to experience fantasy football, but also you need to understand that fantasy football is a fickle thing. You'll be flying high one week. The next thing you know, oh, my quarterback's hurt. Oh, my running back's hurt. Oh, my team's dead. So fantasy football's crazy. But I'm glad you're having fun with it.
All right, yeah, for sure. I'm pretty excited. I've been getting actually real nerdy with it and comparing because we do Yahoo fantasy sports. I've been comparing the Yahoo projections with the ESPN.com projections. And I don't think that's helped at all. I think I've just gotten lucky. But keep my fingers crossed. Hope this luck continues. But anyways, that does it for this episode of What is Sports. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're going to be recapping the Notre Dame and Georgia college football game, which is Saturday, right, Nick?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're also going to be talking about MLB 2019 season. Y'all are going to kind of do a recap of it, right? A lot of stuff has happened, a lot of which I've missed. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And also kind of looking ahead towards playoffs. Because when do playoffs start?
It's a good question. They start on October 1st.
All right. Super excited about that. I'm kind of sad that the Rangers aren't going, but I guess that's normal, right?
I mean, for the past few years, it was expected for this year.
Yeah.
So.
But if you enjoyed what you heard, give us a like on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at WhatIsSports1 with no question mark. Also, leave us a rating and review on iTunes if you please. And also check out our sister show, What is Nerd, which comes out this Friday. Finally, if you have any comments or questions, send us an email at wisportscast@gmail.com. But that does it for this week. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.